Ambassador Zixthara had witnessed 12,000 negotiations in her 4-century career. Her crystalline form shifted through calming blue frequencies as she observed the newest species to join the Galactic Council chambers, the humans. They sat differently than other species, where most delegates arranged themselves in the traditional circle of equals. The 5 human representatives had pulled their chairs back slightly, creating subtle but unmistakable distance. The human who spoke for their delegation was unremarkable by galactic standards. Average height, bilateral symmetry, carbon-based. Nothing that would distinguish them from dozens of other species except for their eyes. Those brown organs seemed to evaluate everything with an intensity that made even Zixthara's ancient nerves vibrate uncomfortably. The hegemony's proposal is quite reasonable, High Councillor Vexthani was explaining, his golden tentacles weaving complex patterns of emphasis. The Frontier Accord has governed expansion for over 3,000 years. New species simply need to accept designated zones and file proper colonization requests through established channels. The human delegate, Sarah Chen, according to the translation matrix, sat perfectly still. Around the vast circular chamber, representatives from 47 civilizations nodded their various appendages in agreement. The system had worked flawlessly. Species joined the council, accepted their assigned territories, followed the protocols, and peace reigned across the galaxy. Your species has shown impressive technological development, continued Vexthani. The Council is prepared to fast-track your application and assign you 12 prime systems in the Orion Arm. This is quite generous for a species that achieved faster-than-light travel only recently. Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. The Zephyrians clicked their approval, the Melonians hummed in harmony, and even the notoriously difficult Korf delegation gestured positive acknowledgement. 12 systems was indeed generous. Most species received 6 or 7 upon initial acceptance. Sarah Chen's expression didn't change. She exchanged brief glances with her team, subtle communication passing between them in micro-expressions that the translation matrix couldn't interpret. Then she stood up. The chamber fell silent. Standing during negotiations was considered either a great honor or a grave insult, depending on context. Which would the humans choose?
High Counselor,
Chen said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space.
We appreciate the time you've taken to explain your system.
Relief flickered through the assembled delegates.
The humans understood proper protocol after all. However, Chen continued, we decline your offer. Confusion replaced relief. The translation matrix scrambled to verify the meaning, running Chen's words through 17 different linguistic frameworks. The result was always the same. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. Zixthara interjected, her crystals shifting to diplomatic amber. The Council's offer is not negotiable upward, but we might discuss minor modifications to the territorial boundaries or development timelines.
You're not understanding me, Chen replied.
We're not negotiating modifications, we're declining to participate in your system entirely. The silence stretched beyond diplomatic courtesy into genuine shock. Vexthani's tentacles had stopped moving altogether, frozen in mid-gesture. The Korth delegate's atmospheric suit made wheezing sounds as their respiratory system struggled with the concept. That's not how this works, Vextavi managed. Every species joins the Council. Every species accepts territorial assignments. Every species follows the Frontier Accord. It's been this way for 3 millennia. Then you've had a good run, Chen said. But humanity chooses differently. She gestured to her team, and all 5 humans stood simultaneously. The scraping of their chairs against the polished floor created the only sound in the vast chamber. Where will you go? Demanded Councillor Prex of the Altarian Commonwealth. Space is vast, but all habitable systems fall under Council jurisdiction. You cannot simply ignore established law. Chen paused at the chamber's edge and turned back. For the first time, something like amusement flickered in her eyes. Councillor, has it ever occurred to you that your laws only have power over those who choose to recognize them?
You'll reconsider,
Vexthani called after them. When you see the reality of trying to survive outside established frameworks, you'll return. The galaxy is too dangerous for a single species to face alone. But the humans were already walking away, their footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. 3 cycles later, every human ship vanished from known space. The disappearance wasn't sudden or dramatic. Over the course of several months, human vessels simply stopped appearing at trading stations, stopped responding to communications, stopped following filed flight plans. When Council ships investigated Earth itself, they found the homeworld still inhabited, but every shipyard empty, every orbital facility abandoned. Every sign of space-based infrastructure gone. The humans had taken everything and left. It's impossible, insisted military coordinator Thexrel during the emergency session. You can't move an entire spacefaring civilization without someone noticing.
Ships leave trails, energy signatures, gravitational disturbances. Our sensor networks cover every major hyperspace route.
But the evidence was undeniable. Humanity had vanished as completely as if they had never existed, leaving behind only empty space and profound questions. Perhaps they destroyed themselves, suggested Councillor Prex. Some species cannot psychologically handle the transition to galactic civilization. They may have chosen extinction rather than adaptation. Zixthara's crystals flickered through skeptical purple frequencies. The humans didn't strike me as a self-destructive species. If anything, they seemed remarkably self-possessed. The investigation consumed months. Council ships scoured the outer systems, followed energy signatures that led nowhere, analyzed spatial anomalies that revealed nothing. They found debris from human ships, but only from vessels known to have been destroyed in accidents. They found energy residue from human drives, but only traces so old they predated first contact. It was as if humanity had planned their disappearance from the moment they first encountered the Council. They're hiding in dark space, military coordinator Thexrel declared. Drifting between systems, running silent, surviving on stored resources. They'll emerge when their supplies run low, ready to negotiate properly. But as cycles passed without any sign of human activity, even Thexrel's confidence began to waver. The first indication that humanity hadn't simply hidden came from the outer rim. The Talaxian Mining Consortium reported anomalous readings from the Kepler system, a backwater region with minimal resources and no strategic value. When a council investigation team arrived, they found something impossible. A thriving colony on Kepler 442b. Not an established colony. That would have required decades of preparation and been impossible to hide. But a fully functional settlement with atmospheric processes, manufacturing facilities, and defensive installations that hadn't existed 6 months earlier. The colony bore no identifying markers, responded to no communications, and showed technology signatures unlike anything in Council databases. When the investigation team attempted to approach, warning shots from weapons platforms convinced them to maintain distance. It has to be them, Zixthara concluded during the briefing. But how? Kepler 442b was surveyed just 2 cycles ago. It was barren rock with a barely breathable atmosphere. More importantly, added Vextani, it's outside assigned territorial boundaries. Whatever species is colonizing Kepler is violating the Frontier Accord. 3 more colonies appeared over the following months. Then 7. Then 15. All in systems previously considered worthless, all showing impossible development timelines, all refusing communication, and defending themselves with unknown technology. The pattern became clear when long-range sensors finally captured a glimpse of the ships responsible. Sleek vessels with no registry codes, their energy signatures scrambled beyond recognition, but their basic design unmistakably human. They're terraforming dead worlds faster than should be possible, reported Chief Scientist Yeltrani. Our own terraforming processes require decades of atmospheric modification before a world can support complex life. These colonies are achieving breathable conditions in months. Ow. Unknown. Their technology appears to exceed our capabilities in several key areas. The Council chamber erupted in concerned discussion. No species had ever developed advanced terraforming without Council oversight. The technological requirements were enormous, requiring cooperation between multiple specialized civilizations. They must have stolen the technology, insisted Councillor Prex. Raided our databases during their time here. Copied our industrial secrets. It's the only explanation. But Zixthara remembered those brown eyes. The way Sarah Chen had evaluated everything with calculating precision. I don't think they stole anything, Counselor. I think they were studying us. For what purpose? To understand our limitations. The real shock came when deep space monitoring stations detected massive energy signatures from beyond the galactic rim. Analysis revealed the impossible. Humanity was constructing something in the void between galaxies, using resources and energy on a scale that dwarfed anything the Council had achieved. It's a shipyard, Thexrel reported, his voice tight with disbelief. Multiple shipyards. Industrial facilities that could construct fleets numbering in the millions. Impossible. The resource requirements alone. They're harvesting entire asteroid belts, Counselor, dismantling uninhabitable planets, converting raw matter into construction materials with efficiency we can't match. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in.
Humanity hadn't hidden in dark space or carved out a few secret colonies. They had transformed themselves into something the galaxy had never seen. A truly independent, spacefaring civilization, bound by no laws but their own.
What do they want? Vexthani asked finally. Zixthara's crystals shifted through ominous red frequencies as she considered the evidence. The calculated way humanity had studied council procedures, their complete lack of interest in negotiation, their methodical expansion beyond established boundaries, their massive industrial preparations. I don't think they want anything from us, she said quietly. I think they're preparing for us to try to stop them. The Rigelian trade network was the pride of galactic commerce, a web of trade routes connecting over 300 systems in perfectly orchestrated efficiency. For 8 centuries, cargo ships had followed established patterns, delivering goods on schedules so precise that civilizations based their economic planning around them. When the first convoy vanished, traffic coordinator Vexthani assumed a navigation error. Space was vast, and even experienced captains occasionally miscalculated hyperspace jumps. When the second convoy disappeared, she suspected raiders. When the third, fourth, and fifth convoys vanished without sending distress signals, she realized something unprecedented was happening. Show me the pattern, she ordered her analysis team. The holographic display materialized above the control center, 3-dimensional trade routes rendered in flowing light. Red markers indicated the last known positions of missing convoys. As more data populated the display, a disturbing truth emerged. All the disappearances occurred along routes passing through systems humanity had been observed colonizing. They're intercepting our ships, concluded senior analyst Kexmore. But there are no signs of battle damage, no debris fields, no distress signals. It's as if the convoys simply ceased to exist. Vexthani studied the display with growing unease. The missing routes represented significant commercial arteries, pathways carrying rare minerals from the outer rim to manufacturing centers in the core worlds. Without those resources, dozens of civilizations would face economic disruption within months. Dispatch a military escort to accompany the next convoy, she decided. If humans are interdicting our traffic, they'll have to reveal themselves when faced with Council warships. The escort mission consisted of 12 vessels from the combined defense fleet, enough firepower to discourage most raiders, and sufficient sensor arrays to detect cloaked attackers. Captain Vothran of the CDF Harmonious Purpose commanded the operation with typical military precision. The convoy proceeded normally for 2 days, following the established route through the Deneb sector. Cargo ships maintained proper formation, while military vessels swept for threats. All sensors showed clear space. Then, between one sensor sweep and the next, the convoy was gone. Not destroyed, gone. As if 15 ships and their combined mass had simply stopped existing in that particular region of space. The escort sensors registered the disappearance but could provide no explanation for how it had occurred. Captain Vothran immediately ordered full alert status and began emergency protocols. His ships spread into defensive formation while every available scanner probed the surrounding space for any sign of the missing convoy. Contact the Council immediately, he ordered. We have a Code 7 situation. The transmission never reached its destination. 3 minutes after beginning his report, the CDF Harmonious Purpose and her escort flotilla vanished as completely as their quarry. This time, long-range monitoring stations captured fragments of the event. Analysis revealed energy signatures consistent with massive gravitational manipulation. Not the violent disruption of weapons fire, but something far more sophisticated. The ships hadn't been destroyed, they had been relocated. It's a form of forced translation, explained Chief Scientist Yeltrani during the emergency briefing, similar to hyperspace technology but applied externally. Someone is moving our ships against their will. To where? Demanded Military Coordinator Thexrel. Unknown. The translation effect leaves no trail to follow. High Counselor Vexthani's tentacles writhed with agitation. What do they want? If humanity is capturing our ships, surely they'll make demands, present terms, open some form of communication. But weeks passed without any word from the missing convoys. The economic impact began rippling through Council space as critical supply chains collapsed. Mining operations in the Outer Rim faced closure without transport capacity. Manufacturing centers reduced production. Smaller civilizations dependent on trade revenue appealed desperately for Council intervention. We have to respond, insisted Councillor Prex. Every day we delay, more ships disappear. At current rates, the entire trade network will be crippled within a year. Respond how? Asked Zixthara. We don't know where they're taking our people, what they want, or how their technology works. Military action might trigger something worse. Then we negotiate, Vextani declared. Send diplomatic envoys to known human colonies. Demand explanations. Open dialogue. The first diplomatic mission approached the nearest human settlement, the colony on Kepler, 442b, that had sparked the original investigation. Ambassador Jexton led a 3-ship delegation equipped with full diplomatic protocols and authorized to discuss territorial concessions if necessary. The human colony had grown dramatically in the months since its discovery. What had been a basic settlement was now a thriving city with massive industrial complexes and orbital installations. The transformation defied every known timeline for colonial development. Human colony, this is Ambassador Jexton of the Galactic Council, his transmission began. We request permission to enter your system for diplomatic discussions regarding recent incidents affecting Council shipping. The response was swift and unambiguous. Automated defense systems locked onto the diplomatic ships with targeting scanners while a text-only message appeared on their communication arrays. Leave immediately. Further approach will be considered hostile. We seek only dialogue. Jexton persisted. The Council wishes to resolve current tensions through peaceful negotiation. This time, the response came in the form of warning shots. Energy bolts that passed close enough to the diplomatic vessels to register on their shields but caused no damage. The message was clear. Jexton wisely ordered his ships to withdraw, but not before his sensors gathered valuable intelligence. The human colony wasn't just thriving, it was heavily fortified. Orbital defense platforms, energy shields, and weapon emplacements far exceeded anything typically found on frontier settlements. They're not building colonies, Jexton reported upon his return. They're building fortress worlds. More disturbing was the evidence of massive resource extraction. Human mining operations were stripping entire asteroid belts with efficiency that suggested technology far beyond what they had demonstrated during their brief council membership. Raw materials flowed to hidden facilities in a scale of industrial activity that implied enormous construction projects. What are they building? Vextani asked the question that haunted every council member. The answer came from the most unexpected source. Captain Hextara, of the cargo vessel Prosperity's Dream, had been one of the lucky few whose ship had been captured and later released. She arrived at council headquarters in a battered escape pod, the sole survivor of her crew, with a story that changed everything the council thought they understood about their situation.
They didn't hurt us, she reported during her debriefing.
That's the most frightening part. They were efficient. Her account was methodical and precise, the testimony of an experienced spacer who understood what she had witnessed. The Prosperity's Dream had been traveling the Cygnus trade route when space around the ship suddenly twisted, reality bending in ways that violated basic physics. When the distortion cleared, her vessel was held motionless in an enormous bay surrounded by ships she didn't recognize. The facility was massive, she continued, larger than anything I've ever seen. Not built for beauty or comfort, purely functional. And there were hundreds of captured ships, maybe thousands. Human personnel had boarded her vessel with mechanical precision. They inventoried every item in the cargo hold, copied all computer files, interviewed each crew member individually. The questions were specific and probing. Trade routes, fleet schedules, military protocols, economic data. They wanted to understand how our systems work, Hextara realized. Not just our technology, our entire civilization. How we organize trade, how we make decisions, where our vulnerabilities lie. After completing their analysis, the humans had provided her crew with an escape pod and released them in council space. But not before delivering a message. They said to tell the council that humanity is claiming sovereignty over the Outer Rim territories. All council ships attempting to transit those systems will be interdicted. All trade through claimed space will cease. The chamber erupted in outraged protests. The Outer Rim contained vast resources essential to council civilization. Without access to those systems, entire industries would collapse. They can't simply claim sovereignty, insisted Councillor Prex. Territorial disputes require negotiation, legal frameworks, established precedent. You don't just declare ownership of star systems. But Hextara's final observation silenced the protests. Councillor, they showed me what they've built out there. The facilities, the fleets, the defenses. I don't think they care what legal frameworks say they can or can't do. The humans had constructed something unprecedented, a fully militarized, spacefaring civilization with no dependencies on council infrastructure. They produced their own ships, refined their own resources, defended their own territory. Most importantly,
They had demonstrated the capability to project force anywhere in Council space through their gravitational manipulation technology.
They're not trying to join our system or replace it. Zixthara concluded with growing horror. They're proving it's irrelevant. As if to emphasize the point, reports began arriving of human activity in previously unexplored regions. Survey ships reported massive construction projects in systems so distant that Council vessels had never bothered investigating them. Automated probes detected energy signatures suggesting industrial facilities on a scale that dwarfed anything in known space. Humanity wasn't just claiming the outer rim. They were expanding beyond it, reaching into the void between spiral arms, establishing settlements in regions the Council had never considered accessible.
How many systems are we talking about? Vexthani asked weakly. The intelligence officer's response sent chills through the chamber.
Conservative estimates suggest they've claimed or begun operations in over 8,000 systems. Most are in regions we've never explored. 8,000 systems. The entire Council controlled roughly 2,000 inhabited worlds, built up over 3 millennia of careful expansion. Humanity had claimed 4 times that number in less than 2 years. It's impossible, Thexral protested. No civilization can expand that rapidly. The logistics alone... Unless they're not following our logistics, interrupted Zixthera. Unless they've developed methods we don't understand. Technologies that make our assumptions meaningless. The true scope of humanity's transformation became clear when deep space observatories detected the construction projects beyond the galactic rim. The energy signatures were staggering. Matter conversion on a stellar scale, engineering projects that manipulated gravity itself, industrial capacity that could reshape entire worlds. Humanity had spent their time in hiding well. They had emerged not as refugees seeking Council protection or newcomers begging for territory, but as a force powerful enough to ignore Council authority entirely. What do we do? Vexthani asked the question that no High Councillor had ever needed to ask. For 3,000 years, the Council had grown accustomed to being the ultimate authority in known space. Their word was law, their decisions final, their power unquestioned. Now they faced a species that simply didn't recognize any of it, and the most terrifying realization was slowly dawning on them all. Humanity had never intended to negotiate because they had never needed anything the Council could offer. They had been planning this independence from the very beginning, studying Council weaknesses while building the strength to ignore Council authority completely. The age of galactic diplomacy was ending, and no one had asked the galaxy's permission. The Altarian Commonwealth had ruled the Centaurus sector for over a millennium. Their vast administrative fleets ensured perfect order across 47 systems, with every trade route monitored, every resource flow regulated, and every colonial settlement operating under precise governmental oversight. It was the pinnacle of civilized administration until the day their entire fleet simply disappeared. Governor Prextel received the first reports while reviewing quarterly production statistics from the mining colonies. 3 words that shattered his understanding of reality. Fleet is gone. Not destroyed in battle. Not lost to mechanical failure, not scattered by some natural disaster. Gone. Every ship, every crew member, every carefully maintained vessel that represented centuries of technological advancement had vanished between one routine patrol and the next. Explain gone, Prextol demanded. Though something in his mind already understood the terrible implications, Communications Officer Yextai's breathing apparatus whistled with stress. Sir, at 14:30 Standard Time, all vessels of the 7th Administrative Fleet ceased responding to communications. Long-range sensors show no debris, no energy signatures, no evidence of their existence anywhere in the sector. Equipment malfunction. Sensor failures. Check the arrays. Already verified, sir. Multiple independent monitoring stations confirm the same readings. The fleet has simply ceased to exist in normal space. Prextel felt something cold settle in his administrative chambers. The 7th Fleet consisted of over 300 vessels, not just patrol ships, but massive administrative platforms, communications relays, and the mobile command centers that coordinated Commonwealth operations across multiple systems. Losing them represented decades of irreplaceable infrastructure. Scan for human activity in our territory, he ordered quietly. The results confirmed his worst fears. Human presence had been detected in 17 Commonwealth systems, previously worthless worlds now showing signs of rapid development. Automated installations were already extracting resources while defensive platforms warned off any approaching Commonwealth vessels. They've been operating in our space for months, reported Security Coordinator Texel. Our administrative oversight was so focused on regulated systems that we never noticed activity in the outer worlds. The humans had executed their expansion with surgical precision. They avoided inhabited worlds and major industrial centers, focusing instead on systems the Commonwealth had surveyed but never bothered to develop. Resources that administrators had filed away as future potential were being extracted and processed by human operations that had appeared overnight. "Contact the Council immediately," Prextal ordered. "Request emergency military assistance." But when he tried to reach the Council chambers, he discovered that communication networks throughout the sector were experiencing systematic failures. Not damage from attacks or natural interference, the networks simply couldn't establish connections with Council space. "It's a communication blockade," Tex Hall realized. "They're isolating us." The isolation was methodical and complete. Every hyperspace communication relay that connected the Commonwealth to the broader Council had been disabled. Not destroyed, the installations remained physically intact, but their quantum communication arrays had been modified in ways that Commonwealth technicians couldn't understand or reverse. "We're cut off," Prextal stated the obvious truth with growing horror. The Commonwealth had never operated independently. For over 1,000 years, they had been part of the vast Council network, receiving technological updates, economic coordination, and military support through established channels. Their entire governmental structure assumed Council backup for any major crisis. Now they faced the terrifying reality that they were alone. The first human contact came not through diplomatic channels or military confrontation, but through simple commercial communication networks. A text message appeared simultaneously on every Commonwealth communication device, delivered through systems that should have been impossible to access. "Commonwealth Administrative Authority, your continued operations in claimed space violate human territorial sovereignty. Evacuate all installations in the following systems within 30 standard days. Failure to comply will result in forced relocation of your personnel." The message included a list of 23 systems, worlds that contain some of the Commonwealth's most productive mining operations and agricultural facilities. Losing them would devastate the sector's economy. "They're demanding we abandon systems we've held for centuries," Prextal told his emergency council. "Systems that support millions of our citizens." "Can we negotiate?" asked Economic Coordinator Vexmore. "Offer them other territories, establish joint development agreements, find some compromise? How do you negotiate with someone who won't talk to you?" The humans had provided no contact information, no diplomatic protocols, no method for discussion. They had simply issued demands and set deadlines. The Commonwealth's attempts to establish communication with human installations were met with automated responses. "Evacuate claimed space." Desperation forced Prextal to consider options that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. "What about military resistance? We still have system defense forces, orbital installations, enough firepower to make conquest costly." Security Coordinator Texol's atmospheric suit made stressed whistling sounds. "Governor, they made our entire fleet disappear without firing a shot. What makes you think our remaining forces could stop them?" The question hung in the air like poison. The Commonwealth's military doctrine had always assumed Council support for major conflicts. Their defensive installations were designed to hold positions until relief arrived, not to face sustained assault from unknown forces. "They're not trying to conquer us," Prextal realized with growing clarity. "They're trying to manage us." The observation proved accurate. As the evacuation deadline approached, human actions became more sophisticated and revealing. They didn't threaten Commonwealth civilians or attack undefended installations. Instead, they demonstrated capabilities that made resistance pointless. Commonwealth mining ships attempting to continue operations found their vessels mysteriously transported to empty space, crews unharmed but equipment disabled. Administrative facilities experienced power failures that repair teams couldn't fix. Systems that would operate normally until Commonwealth personnel tried to access them, then shut down completely. Most unsettling were the reconnaissance flights that began appearing over major Commonwealth cities. Human aircraft that ignored all attempts at interception, flying complex patterns while conducting obvious surveillance operations. The craft responded to neither weapons fire nor electronic countermeasures, completing their missions with mechanical precision before vanishing into hyperspace. "They're cataloging our capabilities," Tex Hal reported, after analyzing the flight patterns. "Mapping our defenses, studying our infrastructure, preparing for whatever comes next." The evacuation deadline arrived with a demonstration that eliminated any doubt about human capabilities. At precisely the appointed time, every Commonwealth installation in the claimed systems simply stopped working. Power plants shut down, life support systems activated emergency modes, communication arrays went silent. The facilities remained physically undamaged, but they no longer responded to Commonwealth control. And then came the relocations. Commonwealth personnel found themselves transported en masse to unclaimed worlds outside human territory, not teleported individually, but moved entire installations at once. Thousands of people, along with their equipment and supplies, relocated to systems that humans had apparently prepared for their arrival. The process was gentle but absolute. Families woke up in prefabricated housing complexes on worlds they had never seen. Mining crews found their equipment neatly arranged at new extraction sites. Administrative personnel discovered their offices had been precisely recreated, down to personal effects and filing systems. "It's impossible," Dexmore whispered during the emergency meeting on Kepler Station, the Commonwealth's remaining stronghold. "You can't relocate entire populations instantly across interstellar distances." But the evidence was undeniable. Humanity possessed technology that treated space itself as malleable, capable of moving massive objects across vast distances without traditional transportation. They had essentially rewritten the Commonwealth's territorial holdings overnight. The most disturbing aspect wasn't the forced relocation, it was the consideration with which it had been executed. The humans had selected appropriate worlds for each population, ensured adequate resources were available, even arranged for familiar foods and environmental conditions. They had planned not just to remove Commonwealth presence, but to ensure those people could survive and rebuild. They studied us, Prextor realized. Not just our military capabilities or economic systems, but our social structures, our biological needs, our psychological requirements. This wasn't conquest, it was sophisticated population management. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't simply developed superior technology, they had developed the administrative capability to reorganize entire civilizations. They could move populations, reassign territories, and restructure galactic organization as easily as the Commonwealth revised patrol schedules. A single communication arrived at Kepler Station, delivered through channels that Commonwealth technicians couldn't trace or block. Unlike the previous text messages, this one came with full audio and visual transmission. Sarah Chen appeared on the main display, exactly as she had during that final council meeting cycles earlier. She sat in what appeared to be a command center, surrounded by displays showing Commonwealth systems and council territory with clinical precision. "Governor Prextor," she began, somehow knowing he would be receiving the transmission. "The Commonwealth has complied with relocation requirements. Your people are safe and have been provided with resources to establish new settlements outside claimed space." Prextor tried to respond, to open dialogue, but quickly realized the transmission was one way. Chen was delivering information, not inviting conversation. "You're wondering about our capabilities," she continued. "How we accomplished these relocations, why we found it necessary, what we intend to do next. The answer is simple. We're reorganizing galactic civilization to operate more efficiently." Her words carried no emotion, no hostility, no sense that she considered the Commonwealth's perspective relevant to her decisions. The council system created artificial scarcities, bureaucratic inefficiencies, and technological stagnation. Species were assigned inadequate territories while vast regions remained undeveloped. Resources were allocated through political negotiation rather than optimal utilization. Military conflicts arose from territorial disputes that served no practical purpose. Chen gestured to displays showing human settlements scattered across previously unexplored space. "We have eliminated these inefficiencies. Claimed space now operates under direct resource management rather than administrative oversight. Displaced populations have been relocated to territories better suited to their needs than their previous assignments." The transmission included detailed information about Commonwealth citizens who had been relocated. Families were accounted for, medical needs addressed, economic opportunities provided. Humanity had managed the displacement with bureaucratic precision that exceeded anything the Commonwealth itself had achieved. "Your cooperation in this transition is noted and appreciated," Chen concluded. "Further territorial adjustments may be necessary as reorganization continues. Commonwealth personnel should remain in assigned areas pending additional instructions." The transmission ended, leaving Prextor staring at a dark screen that reflected his own horrified expression. "They're not conquering us," he said slowly. "They're administering us." Humanity had revealed their true intent. They didn't want to destroy the council system or negotiate with existing powers. They wanted to replace galactic organization entirely, managing species and territories with the efficiency they brought to all their operations. And the most terrifying realization was that they had the capability to succeed. Admiral Crickstein had commanded the Council's combined defense fleet for 60 years, leading campaigns against pirates, mediating territorial disputes, and maintaining the peace that had characterized the galaxy for over 2 millennia.
His tactical experience encompassed every form of warfare known to civilized space, from massive fleet engagements to surgical strike operations.
None of it had prepared him for fighting an enemy that treated military force as an administrative problem to be solved. "Show me the tactical situation," he ordered from the command center of his flagship, the CDF Eternal Vigilance.
Around him, holographic displays materialized showing the current disposition of Council forces. Over 8,000 ships representing the combined military might of 47 civilizations. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history, hastily gathered from every sector as reports of human expansion reached critical levels.
Ships that had never operated together struggled to coordinate through different communication protocols and incompatible tactical doctrines, but the sheer scale of the force should have been overwhelming. Human territorial claims now extend across approximately 12,000 systems, reported intelligence coordinator Bexthrol. They've established major installations in regions we didn't even know existed. The holographic galaxy rotated slowly. Human-controlled space marked in stark red indicators that seemed to consume more territory with each intelligence update. What had started as isolated colonies in the outer rim had become a vast network of interconnected systems stretching beyond the galactic disk itself.
"How is this possible?" demanded Captain Yexmol of the Zephyrian Destroyer Squadron. "No civilization can develop that many systems simultaneously. The resource requirements, the coordination challenges, the sheer logistics, unless they're not developing systems the way we understand development," interrupted Admiral Crixthane. He studied the display with growing unease.
Human expansion followed no recognizable pattern. They hadn't claimed the most resource-rich systems or the most strategically valuable positions.
Instead, they had selected systems based on criteria that Council analysts couldn't identify. "They're not following our expansion models," he realized.
"They're following their own." The first indication of how different human thinking had become came from the attempted siege of Kepler 442b, the original human colony that had sparked the crisis. Admiral Crixthane had personally led a task force of 300 ships to establish a blockade, intending to cut off supplies and force negotiations. The human response was elegant in its simplicity. They made the blockade irrelevant.
"Admiral," reported sensor operator Texing, her voice tight with confusion. "We're detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system, but not from the colony."
"Explain."
"The star itself is showing anomalous output.
Solar flares beyond anything in our database, but they're controlled."
Directed. Admiral Crixthane stared at the sensor readings with growing horror. Humanity had learned to manipulate stellar energy, harvesting the star's output directly to power their operations. The colony wasn't dependent on external supplies because it drew energy from nuclear fusion on a scale that made traditional power generation obsolete.
"They're not just mining planets," he whispered. "They're mining suns." The realization changed everything about the tactical situation. Human colonies weren't vulnerable to blockade because they weren't dependent on supply lines. They could operate indefinitely using local resources and stellar energy, making them functionally independent of external support. But the real shock came when the task force attempted to withdraw. Admiral Crixthane had ordered a strategic retreat when it became clear that conventional siege tactics were useless, but his ships discovered they couldn't leave the system. "Hyperspace engines are non-functional," reported Chief Engineer Wexfall. "Not damaged. They simply won't engage. It's as if space itself won't allow translation." 300 Council warships found themselves trapped in the Kepler system, held by forces they couldn't understand or counter. Their weapons remained functional, their life support operated normally, but they couldn't escape the system boundaries. "Attention Council fleet," came a transmission from the surface. Not from Sarah Chen this time, but from a human Admiral Crixthane didn't recognize. "This is Commodore James Walsh of the Terran Strategic Command. You are currently experiencing localized space-time modification." The transmission included technical diagrams that Council scientists would later realize represented a fundamental breakthrough in gravitational manipulation. Humans had learned to create artificial gravity wells strong enough to prevent hyperspace translation while remaining undetectable to conventional sensors. "Your vessels are undamaged and your crews are in no danger," Walsh continued. "However, your departure is contingent upon Council agreement to formal territorial recognition. You will remain in this system until proper negotiations are concluded." Admiral Crixthane found himself in the unprecedented position of commanding a fleet that had been captured without a shot being fired. His ships were intact, his crews unharmed, but they were prisoners of technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolutes. "This is Admiral Crixthane of the Council Defense Fleet," he responded. "We demand immediate release of our vessels and recognition of our sovereign right to free navigation. Walsh's response revealed the extent to which human thinking had diverged from galactic norms. Admiral, sovereignty is a social construct. It has meaning only when all parties agree to recognize it. Humanity does not recognize Council sovereignty over space we currently control. Then what do you want? What are your terms for release? We don't want anything from you, Admiral. This situation exists because the Council refuses to acknowledge the reality of human territorial claims. When that acknowledgement occurs, your fleet will be free to leave. The conversation revealed the fundamental disconnect between human and Council approaches to conflict. The Council viewed the situation as a negotiation, where terms could be discussed and concessions exchanged.
Humans viewed it as an administrative problem requiring acknowledgement of facts. Days passed without resolution. The Council fleet remained trapped, while human operations in the system continued with mechanical efficiency. Admiral Crixthane watched through long-range sensors as human ships came and went freely, unaffected by whatever held his forces in place.
How are they doing this? He asked his science staff repeatedly. The answer came from the most unlikely source. Dr. Yeltrani, the Council's chief scientist, had spent weeks analyzing sensor data from the trapped fleet. Her discovery fundamentally altered understanding of human technological development. They're not using technology, she reported during the encrypted briefing. Not in any sense we understand technology. Explain. Technology implies tools, devices, mechanisms that achieve specific effects. What humans are doing appears to be direct manipulation of quantum fields. They're not building gravity generators. They're convincing space itself to behave differently. The implications were staggering. Human development had apparently advanced beyond mechanical technology into direct manipulation of physical laws. They didn't need ships to travel between stars. They could modify space to bring destinations closer. They didn't need weapons to defeat enemies. They could make resistance impossible by altering the environment. It's not science, Dr. Ford, Yeltrani continued. It's something else entirely. They've moved beyond understanding physics to controlling it. Admiral Crixthane began to comprehend the true scope of what the Council faced. Humanity hadn't developed superior technology. They had transcended the need for technology altogether. They operated on principles that made conventional military thinking obsolete. The demonstration that confirmed his fears came when the Council attempted a rescue mission. Admiral Prexthal led the 2nd Defense Fleet in an attempt to break the gravitational trap holding Crixthane's forces, bringing the most advanced Council warships equipped with experimental gravitational countermeasures. The rescue fleet arrived in the Kepler system to find empty space where the trapped ships should have been. No debris, no energy signatures, no indication that 300 vessels had ever existed. Admiral Crixthane! Please respond! Prexthal transmitted desperately. The response came from an unexpected source, Admiral Crixthane himself, broadcasting from the surface of a planet in the neighboring system. Admiral Prexthal, we are unharmed but no longer in possession of our vessels. The humans have relocated our entire fleet to demonstrate the futility of rescue attempts. 300 Council warships had been moved instantly across interstellar space, crews and all, while remaining fully operational. The demonstration proved that human capabilities extended far beyond anything Council strategists had imagined. Where are your ships? Prexthal demanded. Unknown. The humans have informed us that our vessels are being held in secure locations pending Council recognition of territorial claims. Our crews are being housed in temporary facilities that are remarkably comfortable. The situation had moved beyond military conflict into something unprecedented. Humanity was managing captured Council forces with the same administrative efficiency they brought to everything else, providing for their needs while making their predicament clear. Admiral Crixthane's final transmission to the Council changed the entire nature of the conflict. Council Command, request immediate authorization for unconditional territorial recognition. Human capabilities exceed our ability to resist or counter. Military solutions are no longer viable. The admission sent shockwaves through Council space. The combined defense fleet, pride of galactic civilization, protector of peace for millennia, was requesting surrender after engagement with forces they couldn't even locate, much less fight. Explain your tactical assessment, demanded High Counselor Vexthani during the emergency session. Admiral Crixthane's response was transmitted from human-controlled space, delivered with the precision of an experienced military officer stating facts. High Counselor, humanity has demonstrated the ability to manipulate space, time, and matter on scales that make conventional warfare meaningless. They can relocate our forces at will, neutralize our weapon systems, and control our movement through space. Most importantly, they appear to view our military actions as minor administrative problems rather than serious threats. The message included detailed technical data that Council scientists would spend years trying to understand. Humans had moved beyond the limitations that constrained other species, developing capabilities that seemed to violate fundamental principles of physics. "They're not fighting us," Admiral Crixthane concluded. "They're managing us. And the mathematics of that situation are very simple. You cannot defeat an opponent who can rewrite the laws that govern your existence." The age of military solutions to galactic conflicts had ended. The Council faced an opponent that had transcended the need to fight wars, because they had learned to make war itself obsolete. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in a chamber that had once been the symbol of ultimate authority across known space. Now, holographic displays around the circular amphitheater showed the stark reality of humanity's expansion. Vast red zones indicating territories beyond Council control. Trade routes severed, entire civilizations relocated, and military forces that had simply ceased to exist as functioning entities. High Councillor Vextani stood before representatives who had governed the galaxy for 3 millennia, his golden tentacles trembling with a mixture of rage and desperation that no council leader had ever displayed before. The assembled delegates, those who remained in council space rather than human-controlled territory, watched with expressions ranging from denial to horror. "We face a crisis unprecedented in galactic history," Vextani began, his voice carrying the weight of civilizational collapse. "Humanity has demonstrated capabilities that render our entire governmental structure obsolete." The words hung in the chamber like a death sentence. For 3,000 years, the Council had been the ultimate arbitrator of galactic affairs. Their decisions shaped the destiny of quadrillions of beings. Their word was law across 2,000 star systems. Their power had seemed as permanent as the laws of physics themselves. "Surely negotiation remains possible," insisted Councillor Prex of the Altarian Commonwealth. "Or what remained of it after human territorial reorganization? Every species seeks something. We simply need to determine what humanity wants and provide it." Ambassador Zixthara's crystalline form shifted through exhausted grey frequencies as she responded. "Councillor, that assumes humanity operates under motivational frameworks we can understand. All evidence suggests they want nothing from us." The statement provoked confused murmurs throughout the chamber. The concept of a species that wanted nothing from the Council challenged fundamental assumptions about galactic civilization. Every previous conflict had been resolved through negotiation because every previous species had desires that could be satisfied through compromise. "They must want something," Prax insisted. "Territory, resources, recognition, security. Something we can offer in exchange for coexistence." "They already have territory," replied Zixthara. "More than they could possibly utilize. They've demonstrated the ability to generate resources from previously worthless systems. They've achieved recognition by making our recognition irrelevant. And their security appears absolute." Dr. Yeltrani rose to present her analysis, the culmination of months studying captured human technology and intercepted communications. Her findings would reshape understanding of what intelligence could become when freed from traditional constraints. "The fundamental error in our thinking," she began, "is the assumption that humanity remains bound by the same limitations that constrain our civilizations. Evidence suggests they've moved beyond the need for external resources, political structures, or even physical infrastructure, as we understand these concepts." Her presentation included sensor readings from human-controlled systems that defied conventional interpretation. Worlds terraformed in months rather than decades, energy generation that seemed to extract power directly from vacuum space, construction projects that appeared to assemble matter from component atoms rather than traditional manufacturing. "They're not using advanced technology," Dr. Yeltrani continued. "They've become technology. The distinction between human consciousness and the tools they employ appears to have dissolved entirely." The implications were staggering. Humanity had achieved something beyond the imagination of any council species: direct integration between biological intelligence and the manipulation of physical laws. They didn't build ships, they convinced space to carry them. They didn't construct facilities, they persuaded matter to organize itself into useful configurations. "How is this possible?" demanded military coordinator Thexerl. "Intelligence requires biological substrate. Consciousness needs physical support. Thought cannot exist independently of material structure." "Unless," Dr. Yeltrani replied quietly, "our understanding of consciousness itself is fundamentally flawed." The debate that followed revealed the extent to which humanity had transcended traditional categories of existence. They appeared to operate as a distributed intelligence spread across multiple systems, capable of coordinating activities on galactic scales with perfect efficiency. Individual humans might still exist, but they functioned as components of a larger mind that processed information and made decisions faster than any conventional civilization could manage.
They're not conquering us, realized Councillor Jexmore of the Regellian Trade Network. They're optimizing us. The observation proved accurate.
Analysis of human territorial reorganization revealed patterns that initially seemed arbitrary, but eventually disclosed sophisticated planning. Species displaced from their original worlds had been relocated to systems better suited to their biological requirements. Trade routes disrupted by human expansion had been replaced by more efficient pathways. Resources previously allocated through political negotiation were now distributed based on actual utilization requirements.
It's more efficient, admitted Economic Coordinator Vexmore during his report. Resource distribution under human administration shows significant improvements over our previous systems. Waste has been virtually eliminated, production optimized, distribution streamlined. The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Council's entire authority had been based on the assumption that their administrative methods represented the pinnacle of civilized governance. Now they faced evidence that humanity had developed superior alternatives.
They're not evil, Zixthar observed with growing clarity. They're not malicious, destructive, or even particularly hostile.
They're simply more competent than we are. The statement crystallized the Council's dilemma. Traditional responses to threats assumed opponents who could be fought, negotiated with, or deterred through force. Humanity represented something unprecedented, a species that had evolved beyond the need for any of the tools that had maintained galactic peace for millennia. A transmission interrupted the emergency session, not through conventional communication channels, but delivered simultaneously to every device in the chamber, through methods that Council technicians couldn't trace or block.
Sarah Chen appeared once again, exactly as she had during that final negotiation that had precipitated the crisis.
"Hi, Councillor Vexthani," she said, somehow knowing he would be receiving the message. "The Council has had sufficient time to assess the new situation. Administrative transition is proceeding efficiently, but formal recognition would streamline the process." Vexthani attempted to respond, to open dialogue, but realized the transmission was again one way. Chen was delivering information rather than inviting discussion. "Human territorial claims now extend across 15,000 systems," she continued. "Resource optimization protocols have improved efficiency by an average of 300% across managed regions. Population relocations have been completed with zero casualties and improved living standards for 94% of relocated individuals." Her words carried the mechanical precision of an efficiency report rather than a political statement. She was describing the reorganization of galactic civilization as if it were an engineering project rather than a conquest. "Council governance structures have proven inadequate for galactic-scale coordination," Chen observed. "Political negotiation introduces inefficiencies that prevent optimal resource allocation. Military solutions waste energy that could be directed toward productive purposes. Administrative overhead consumes resources that could support increased population welfare." The transmission included detailed comparisons between Council and human administrative methods. The data was devastating. Human-managed systems showed dramatic improvements in every measurable category, from resource utilization to population satisfaction. "Remaining Council territories will be integrated into optimized administrative frameworks over the next standard year," Chen announced. "Transition protocols have been designed to minimize disruption while maximizing efficiency improvements. Cooperation will accelerate the process but is not required for completion." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Humanity had announced the end of Council governance with the emotional detachment of a corporate restructuring announcement. "They're giving us a year," Vexthani said slowly. "They're informing us that we have a year," corrected Zixthara. "Whether we cooperate or resist, the outcome remains the same." The final debate in Council history concerned not whether to resist humanity, but how to make the transition as beneficial as possible for their populations. Military resistance had proven futile, economic leverage was meaningless against opponents who generated their own resources, and political negotiation was impossible with entities that viewed politics as inefficient resource allocation. "What about our cultures?" asked Cultural Coordinator Rex Moll. "Our traditions, our art, our unique ways of life that have developed over millennia?" Dr. Yeltrani provided the answer based on intelligence gathered from human-controlled systems. They appear to view cultural diversity as a form of optimization. Different approaches to problem-solving provide alternative solutions for complex challenges. Your traditions will be preserved, but as functional components of larger systems rather than independent civilizations. The revelation completed the picture of human intentions.
They didn't seek to destroy existing cultures or eliminate species identity. They wanted to preserve and utilize the unique capabilities of each civilization while organizing them into efficient, cooperative frameworks. It's not conquest, Zixthara realized with final clarity.
It's integration. The Council's last official act was to formally recognize human territorial claims and request assistance with administrative transition. The vote was unanimous, not because delegates agreed with humanity's methods, but because disagreement had become meaningless.
Vextani's final statement as High Counselor acknowledged the end of an era. The Council hereby recognizes that galactic governance has evolved beyond our institutional capabilities. We request human assistance in transitioning our populations to optimized administrative frameworks.
The response arrived within minutes, delivered through the same untraceable communication methods.
This time, it came from multiple human sources simultaneously, suggesting that individual identity had indeed become fluid within their distributed intelligence. Transition assistance authorized, the message stated.
Council personnel will be relocated to systems suited to their administrative experience. Existing governmental structures will be modified to function as regional coordination nodes within the larger network. Cultural preservation protocols are active. Population welfare optimization is proceeding. And then, almost as an afterthought, the Council's 3-millennium commitment to peaceful governance is acknowledged and appreciated. Your administrative experience will be valuable in managing transition efficiency. Even in victory, humanity showed recognition of what the Council had achieved and regret that more efficient methods had made those achievements obsolete. The last entry in the Council archives was a simple notation: administrative transition to human oversight completed. Council governance terminated. New era begins. The galaxy had learned that some species don't negotiate because they don't need to. They simply demonstrate that negotiation itself is an inefficient allocation of resources, and the universe reorganizes itself around their superior methods. The age of politics had ended. The age of optimization had begun. And in the end, it turned out that the mathematics of power had always been simple. The most competent entities determine how reality operates, and everyone else adapts to their decisions. The galaxy had finally encountered a species more competent than anyone had imagined possible. Humanity had never needed to negotiate because they had always known they would eventually become the only party whose agreement mattered. The universe had simply required time to understand this fundamental truth.